Hello, it is me, Henry, back again, yelling into the void about my quest to give half of my income this year to charity. I'm a doctor working in Yorta Yorta country. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And this year I'm giving half of my income to great organisations around the world that are making the world a better place. I've been incredibly lucky in my life. I was born in the right country to the right people. I've been given enormous numbers of opportunities that vast majority of the world hasn't had access to at all. So I think what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And I think it's hard to argue against that. I wonder in 100, 200 years, 300 years, when people are looking back on our time like we look back 200-300 years, will we be the bad guys? I think that's a really important question to ask. Sometimes the right thing to do makes you look like an absolute tosser, but it's still the right thing to do. We have such an incredible power to make the world a better place right now. If you're someone that's been lucky, like me, had a lot of resources, opportunities, we have so much power to make the world a better place. And I think we should make as much use of that as we can. So I'm trying to do that. I'm giving to great charities, and I'm giving even more to really, really great charities all around the world doing fantastic work. And I want to talk about a couple of them today. The money from my latest paycheck's going to two organisations. One is Evidence Action and the other is Living Arts Cambodia. So Evidence Action is one of these organisations that run in developing countries. So the benefit of doing charity in developing countries is that often there's quite a bit of low-hanging fruit. There's just basic necessities that are missing in a lot of the world that we take for granted in Australia, and two of those things are clean water and cheap medications for preventable diseases. Evidence Action does evidence-based work. They, based on evidence that we get from trials of what interventions actually help people and what actually works, they scale up these programs that are proven to be really effective, saving lives on the order of a few $1,000s is kind of what it calculates out to be if you try and do those calculations. So they do a couple of things. Their big thing that they do is the Deworm the World initiative, which is all about handing out really cheap medications to kids in primary schools. About a third of the world has some sort of parasitic worm infection, which is a huge number of people, right? Now, most of these infections don't do anything. They're pretty benign. Very rarely do they kill people, though sometimes they can through bowel obstruction. More commonly, they cause developmental delays through nutrient deficiency, vitamin deficiency, and they can cause learning impairments as well. And that kind of thing has carry-on effects throughout a child's entire life. So the Deworm the World initiative is rated extremely highly by various charity evaluators, one of them being GiveWell, which is this charity evaluator in the US. Very much the centerpiece of the effective altruism movement, which is just this movement that's become quite popular around the world. It's just all about trying to make the world a better place in a really smart way, which is probably obviously all something we all want to do and should want to do. The other thing that Evidence Action does is dispensers for safe water, where they produce these chlorine dispensers and put them near water sources in regions of the world where clean water is a bit of a problem. Evidence Action also has this accelerator where they research and try and scale up promising programs. One of their programs they're doing is, for example, treating syphilis-positive women so that babies don't suffer from the complications of that. So Evidence Action is a fantastic charity. They spend 1% of their money on fundraising, evidence-based, running in places where help is really needed. What an incredible opportunity to make the world a better place, and for not that much money. I'm aiming to give a few tens of thousands of dollars to charity this year, and when you can save lives on the order of a few $1,000s each, I am potentially saving a dozen lives in the course of a year, and it's hard to imagine a better way to spend a year than by doing that. And then something that I haven't really given much to before is the arts. And the arts it's one of those things that's really hard to quantify, what good arts does for the world. Because it's hard to put a number on. How do you put a number on the amount of good that came out of the Statue of David or the Mona Lisa or some piece of avant-garde theatre that is being performed in Fitzroy at the moment? It's very hard to put a number to that, but it doesn't mean that it's not incredibly valuable anyway. There's a story about Winston Churchill during World War II, and one of his advisors tried to convince him to maybe redirect a little bit of the money from the arts to the war effort. And, Winston Churchill supposedly says, "Oh, but then, gentlemen, what would we be fighting for?" And apparently the story is completely made up and that never happened. But the point is interesting, which is that if we didn't have art at all, if we don't fund art at all, then there really is something that is lost, a kind of collective inspiration and pride and identity that's really important. So giving to the arts is really important, even though it's hard to put a number on, the value of a piece of theatre, a piece of music, a piece of painting. The Cambodian Living Arts is this really cool organisation that runs in Cambodia, so I like the idea of giving to organisations in developing countries because often there is a greater need and worker prices are cheaper and kind of cost of resources are cheaper. You can actually often get a lot more from our money than you can in developed countries, which is, I think, certainly something to consider. This organisation runs in Cambodia. It was founded by An Chorn Pond, who's a survivor of the Khmer Rouge. And they do all sorts of fantastic stuff. They support just about any kind of arts you can imagine. They have singers, theatre performers, they have architects, they have writers, they have musicians, poets. They run music festivals, they run arts festivals. They spend about 9% of their money on fundraising, which is not that much. Maybe more than would be ideal, but that's pretty good. I think it's a fantastic organisation. Very happy to give them a bit of money, very happy to support the arts, make life worth fighting for. Always very keen to hear from people what they think, who they think I should be giving to, who they don't think I should be giving to. I'm trying to do this in the smartest way I can, and part of that's listening to the opinions of as many people as possible to try and avoid making any mistakes. And I suppose I certainly will make mistakes at some point, and I'm trying to avoid doing that. Let me know. Send me a message. Leave an aggressive voicemail. Put a negative Yelp review in at my workplace. Send me anthrax in the mail. No, don't send me anthrax in the mail, but very keen to hear from all of you about what you think. Until next time, peace out. Love you all.